Lift your arm and smell your shirt right now. Go ahead, nobody's watching. Most likely, you give off almost nothing. A little laundry detergent. Maybe whatever you sprayed on this morning. Feels normal, feels clean. But here's the strange part. For about 99% of the time humans have existed, not one single person who ever lived smelled like nothing. Your scent was as recognizable as your face. A mother could find her own baby in the dark by smell alone. So what did ancient humans actually smell like? The honest answer is, pretty rank by our standards. But the reason you find that disgusting was sold to you, on purpose, about 100 years ago. And once you see how, you can't unsee it. I'm Nerlin, and I fell down this rabbit hole for an entire weekend, and I came out the other side a little suspicious of my own bathroom. Let's start with the most basic question of all. Why do humans stink in the first place? Here's something almost everyone gets wrong. Sweat doesn't smell. If you could collect it fresh, straight from the gland, sealed and sterile, it would be nearly odorless. You've got two kinds of sweat glands. One kind sits all over your body and just pushes out salty water to cool you down. The other kind is packed into your armpits and groin, and it releases a thick, oily, protein-rich fluid. And that fluid is also odorless when it leaves you. The smell, all of it, comes from something alive. Your skin is a rainforest of bacteria, billions of them, and the ones living in your armpits feast on that oily fluid and tear it apart. What you call body odor is basically the exhaust of a microscopic city that eats you for a living. So when an ancient human lifted their arm, they weren't just sweaty, they were broadcasting. And every other human was built to listen, because that smell was never waste. It carried a message. Hidden inside your scent is a readout of your immune system, a set of genes scientists call the MHC. And in 1995, a Swiss biologist named Klaus Wedekind ran what became one of the most famous experiments in the science of attraction. He had a group of men wear the same plain t-shirt for 2 nights straight. No soap, no cologne, nothing. Then he sealed each shirt in a box, and he had women smell them and rate which ones they found most attractive. The result was almost eerie. The women were consistently pulled toward the shirts of men whose immune genes were the most different from their own. They had no idea why. They were just sniffing boxes. But their noses were doing the math, because a partner with a different immune system means children who can fight off more diseases. For your ancestors, attraction began in the nose, long before a single word was spoken. And here's the twist that should make you slightly uneasy. When Wedekind tested women who were on the birth control pill, the preference flipped. They started leaning toward men who smelled genetically similar, closer to family. So it's fair to wonder how many people picked their partner with a sense humans had trusted for 2 million years quietly switched off. If you've ever kept an ex's hoodie just to smell it and felt your chest go tight, that isn't sentimental nonsense. That's the oldest alarm system you own, still running in the background. But not every human smelled the same, and this is where it gets genuinely weird. There's a single gene with one tiny change inside it called ABCC11. In 2006, researchers writing in the journal Nature Genetics found that this one letter of your DNA decides 2 completely different things at the same time. What your earwax is like, and whether your armpits smell at all. If you carry the switched-off version, your glands barely feed those bacteria, your earwax comes out dry and flaky, and you produce almost no body odor, ever. And that version is not spread evenly across the planet. It's carried by something like 80 to 95% of people of East Asian descent, and by almost nobody of European or African descent. So, for most of history, an enormous chunk of humanity genuinely did not stink, while another enormous chunk absolutely did. 1,000 years ago, Chinese writers even had a name for the strong armpit smell that was common further west. They called it, roughly, the barbarian stench, and some of them assumed it was a kind of disease. Picture that. Entire cultures convinced that body odor was something only foreigners had. Now, you'd assume the story of human smell is simple, that we started filthy and slowly cleaned ourselves up. It's the opposite. It's a roller coaster. 2,000 years ago, an ordinary Roman bathed almost every single day in heated public baths fed by running water. Cleaner, honestly, than your own great-grandfather was as a kid. Then Rome fell, the great baths went cold, and for centuries, much of Europe got dirtier, not cleaner. By the time you reached the royal courts of France, perfume wasn't a luxury, it was camouflage, poured on to bury bodies that were almost never washed. There's a line famously penned on Napoleon, scribbled to his wife as he marched home from war. "Don't wash, I'm coming." Whether he truly wrote it or not, the point holds. For most people, across most of history, the raw scent of another human was not an emergency. It was simply what a person smelled like. And nobody was ashamed of it because everybody carried it. So when exactly did smelling like a human become something to panic about? You can almost circle the date on a calendar. In 1888, the very first deodorant went on sale, a waxy paste called Mum. In 1903, the first antiperspirant arrived, the kind that plugs the glands shut with aluminum. But hardly anyone bought them because smelling natural just wasn't seen as a flaw worth fixing. Then, in 1919, an advertisement ran in a women's magazine for a product called Odorono. It didn't sell freshness, it sold fear. It warned women that they were carrying a terrible smell they couldn't detect on themselves, that it was quietly destroying their chances at love, and that everyone around them could tell but was too polite to say so. Sales leapt more than 100% in a single year. That advertisement, more than any invention, is the moment the modern world was taught to be terrified of its own body. Personally, I think that's the wildest part of this whole story. The smell never changed. We did. The disgust was taught. And we didn't stop at the smell. We declared war on everything living on us. And that's where this stops being a fun fact and starts mattering for your actual health. In 1989, a British scientist named David Strachan spotted something strange in the data. Children from big, crowded families with a pile of older siblings grew up with fewer allergies, not more. The cleaner and more sheltered the childhood, the higher the odds of hay fever, asthma, and eczema. It came to be called the hygiene hypothesis, the idea that an immune system raised in a near-sterile bubble, with nothing real to fight, can eventually turn its weapons on the body itself. And sure enough, allergies and autoimmune conditions have climbed the fastest in exactly the places that scrub the hardest. That rainforest of bacteria we've been blasting off with antibacterial everything, a lot of it was training your immune system, keeping it calm. Scour yourself down to nothing every single day, and you're not just erasing a smell. You may be stripping away a living layer your body spent 2 million years learning to wear. So, what did ancient humans actually smell like? They smelled like animals, like fear and sex and health and sickness. Like the people they loved and the people they didn't trust for a second. They smelled like information, and they could read each other in a way we have very nearly forgotten how to do. We traded all of that for a clean slate that smells like a mountain breeze designed in a laboratory, and we decided to call it progress. I'm not here to tell you to stop showering. I will admit, though, that I quietly stopped buying antibacterial soap after making this. Here's what I actually want to know, down in the comments. Has anyone ever told you that you smell good? Not your perfume, not your shampoo, just you. Because if they did, they were reading something real, something 2 million years old. I'm Nerlin. See you in the next one.